The desert world of Kalar 4 burned under the twin suns. Sand stretched in waves of gold and rust, broken only by jagged cliffs where the Kalorians carved their homes into the stone. High above, storm clouds crackled with violet electricity, the planet's constant reminder that survival was never a gift, it had to be earned every day. Inside one of the cliffside chambers, Kalorian elders sat in a circle. Their translucent wings twitched restlessly, catching stray beams of light from the narrow ceiling vents. The air smelled of ozone and dust. Outside, villagers whispered nervously. Everyone had seen the Syndicate ships slip into orbit, their silhouettes like vast predators blotting out the sky. An elder clicked her mandibles softly, voice carrying a brittle calm. It begins again. The Syndicate returns for our ores, and this time they will not take only minerals. They will take us. The chamber grew silent. Every Kalorian there remembered the stories. Entire colonies stripped bare by the Syndicate slavers, their people scattered across the stars. No one expected mercy. But one elder, older than the rest, raised his eyes toward the storm-lit ceiling. His carapace was faded, edges worn with age, yet his voice carried the sharpness of memory. Do not forget. Once, long ago, we were not alone. A human came to us, and we gave him shelter. The younger Kalorians stirred uneasily. To them, the story was little more than a myth, something told to children before sleep. Yet the old one continued, and his voice carried the weight of truth. Decades earlier, the desert storm had raged for days when the human fell from the sky. His vessel tore through the clouds and slammed into the dunes, scattering glassy fragments across the sand. The Kalorians found him crawling from the wreckage, skin torn, lips cracked, body trembling in the harsh gravity. They should have turned away. The Syndicate had decreed that no one aid humans, labeling them as dangerous, unpredictable, a species best left alone or exterminated. But curiosity and pity stayed their hands. They carried the human into their caves, wrapping him in woven cloth, feeding him water mixed with ground minerals to ease his stomach. He was strange to them, soft-skinned, hair sprouting from his face, eyes too small and filled with constant fire. Yet he tried to speak, and though no words matched, the intent was clear. Gratitude. He learned to gesture, to point and nod. He worked alongside them once he could walk, helping haul water, repairing walls against the storms, even laughing in his own booming way when the children climbed on him. When he was strong enough to leave, he pressed a hand to his chest and spoke slowly, the first words they truly understood. Humanity remembers. And then he was gone, taken by a rescue ship that had followed his trail. Present day. The elder's voice grew softer as the memory faded. That human promised we would not be forgotten. Perhaps, his mandibles clicked thoughtfully, perhaps his people hear us still. The chamber erupted in argument. Foolishness, another snapped. The Syndicate is here now. Do you think humans will fly across the void for insects they met once? They are dangerous. To summon them is to invite more ruin. We cannot trust legends. Survival means surrender. But one younger Kalorian, small-framed with wings unscarred by age, leaned forward. If there is even a chance, we must call. The beacon still rests in the caverns. We send the signal. If they answer, we live. If not, we are no worse than before. The Terran frontier base hummed with quiet precision. Sleek corridors of polished metal reflected the cold blue light of countless consoles, each displaying data streams, star maps, and fleet status indicators. Commander Elias Rourke stood before a vast viewport, watching the swirling light of distant nebulae, his jaw tight, eyes shadowed with years of command. A soft alarm broke the silence, a low, pulsing beep from one of the communications arrays. Rourke's lieutenant approached, fingers already flying over holographic controls. "Commander," she said, voice taut. "Signal intercepted. Terran code, decades old, broadcasting from Kalar 4. Rourke's brow furrowed. The name triggered something buried in the archives of First Contact, a report filed decades ago, almost forgotten. A human crash survivor. A small desert planet. Legends. Long dismissed. "Patch it through," he said, his voice steady despite the tightening in his chest. The signal was faint, intermittent, but unmistakable. A series of repeating pulses, carrying an encrypted code long archived. Rourke recognized the pattern immediately. It was an old human distress frequency, used only for emergencies. His mind raced. Kaler 4, he murmured, almost to himself. Memories of the historical report surfaced. A lone human, stranded in a desert storm, saved by alien hands against syndicate prohibitions. Humanity had recorded the incident, archived it, and left it in quiet folders of forgotten missions. The lieutenant looked at him, uncertain. "Commander, are you saying we respond? That planet isn't a colony. It's just a world at the edge of known space." Rourke turned sharply, his gaze hard. "Do you think that matters? One of ours survived because of them. And now they are in danger. That debt, small as it may seem, belongs to all of us. If they need us, we answer." Her lips parted, caught between protocol and conviction. "The syndicate will notice. Engaging without authorization. It's almost insurrection." Rourke did not flinch. "Do you really think I care what the bureaucracy says? This isn't about orders. This is about keeping our word." The silence stretched for a moment, filled only by the low hum of the base's power cores. Then, with a soft nod, she keyed in the coordinates. The fleet's engines thrummed to life, a distant growl that resonated through the steel floor. Ships of every class, cruisers, frigates, fighter wings, shifted, rearranging formations in preparation for deep space jump. Meanwhile, in orbit above Kaler 4, syndicate forces moved like shadows over the sunlit deserts. Massive, gleaming warships formed a ring around the planet, their hulls reflecting the light of twin suns. Overlord Kareth Vera stood at the center of his command deck, ridged carapace catching the red glow of alert lights. "Bring the scanners into focus," he commanded. His voice was low, cruel, and unyielding, resonating across the deck. "I want every movement below, every whisper of life. These insects have no right to resources we claim. I will not allow sentiment to weaken our grip." A subordinate's claws danced over the controls. "Ships are in position, Overlord. Orbital bombardments ready. Ground suppression units awaiting orders." Karetha's gaze swept across the holographic display. "Begin the intimidation strikes. Let them learn their place." Below, Kilorian settlements shuddered under the initial volleys. Dust columns rose in jagged towers, metal and stone groaning under the weight of syndicate firepower. Children screamed, adults shouted, and somewhere deep in the cliffside, the young Kilorian who had activated the beacon held a trembling claw over his chest, waiting. Light years away, Terran sensors confirmed the distress pulse. Rourke watched it flare on the tactical grid like a heartbeat. The syndicate ships had not noticed yet. They were too confident, too arrogant to consider that humanity might answer a call from the edge of their dominion. Rourke gathered the fleet officers in the command chamber. Screens flickered, showing schematics of Kaler 4, the orbital positions of syndicate vessels, and projected storm patterns over the desert. "Here's the situation," Rourke began, voice calm but firm. "Kaler 4 is unprepared. The syndicate fleet is in orbit and will subjugate the planet within hours if we do nothing. Civilian casualties will be catastrophic. We have one advantage. They believe we are distant, uninterested. We will use that underestimation to our favor." A tactical officer leaned forward. "Commander, engagement without approval risks full-scale war with the syndicate. They're not a minor threat. They'll hit us with everything they have." Rourke's expression did not waver. "I know the risk. But morality isn't measured in protocols. It's measured in choices. They chose kindness decades ago. One of ours survived because of them. That debt is not erased by time. It's our responsibility. And we are capable. Humanity doesn't forget." The officers exchanged hesitant glances. They had trained for wars, battles across hundreds of systems. Yet something in Rourke's conviction shifted the weight of logic. Duty became moral certainty. "Course set," he continued, pointing to the star charts. "All ships prepare for FTL jump. We arrive ready for combat and ready to protect. Anything less would be betrayal." The first shadows of the Terran fleet appeared in orbit like giants stepping from the void. Kaler IV's twin suns reflected off polished hulls, casting long streaks of silver across the desert plains. Kalorians on the cliffs froze, wings brushing the dusty walls of their homes. Every eye, every antenna, every trembling claw turned skyward. "Impossible," whispered one of the younger Kalorians. They came." The elder who had once told the story of the human nodded slowly. They remembered. They always remember. Below, the planet shuddered as the Syndicate warships shifted, their orbits tightening in preparation for orbital bombardments. Kareth Vera's voice echoed across comm channels. "Identify the intruders. These are Terran vessels. They will leave or face obliteration." On the bridge of his flagship, Rourke watched the Syndicate ships with calm precision, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding on the desert surface. Fighter wings already formed into positions, their sleek shapes outlined against the swirling light of the twin suns. "Commander," a tactical officer said, voice tense, "the Syndicate has detected our approach. They're moving to intercept. We'll have to engage immediately." Rourke's jaw tightened. "Engage as needed, but keep the civilians safe. That is our priority. Everything else is secondary." The comm system crackled. From the tunnels and cliffside halls, Kalorian leaders attempted hesitant contact. Their voices were strange, tonal, weaving clicks and hums that the Terran translators labored to render into understandable speech. We do not know if you can help," said the elder, antennae quivering. "We sent a call, not expecting anyone. Can you protect us?" Rourke activated the translator module, his voice steady, carrying the weight of authority and reassurance. "You gave one of ours water when he needed it. We are here because of that. Humanity remembers. We will not let them take you." A pause filled the air as disbelief and awe hung on the line. Then the elder whispered, barely audible, "You kept your word." In orbit, the Syndicate fleet flared into aggression. Their ships, polished obsidian and deadly in design, launched probe fighters and small bombardment drones toward Terran vessels. The first streaks of plasma fired, slicing through the void with lethal precision. Rourke leaned forward, scanning the displays. "Divert power to shields. Launch fighter wings Alpha and Beta. Engage in flanking maneuvers. Use the asteroid belt for cover." The Terran fleet responded like a living organism, movements honed over decades of drills, instinct, and adaptability. Unlike the Syndicate, their designs favored resilience and versatility. Hulls bent under fire but rarely cracked. Fighters twisted and darted through the void with unpredictable patterns, confusing Syndicate targeting systems. From the desert surface, Kalorians saw the first streaks of light, the Terran interceptors dancing through Syndicate drones, blasting plasma volleys that ignited explosions in the vacuum above. Dust rose in shimmering columns as the first Syndicate strikes hit the planet's periphery, but Terran shields absorbed much of the energy before it reached civilian zones. A Kalorian child tugged at an elder's claw, eyes wide. They are fighting for us?" "Yes," the elder murmured, wings quivering. "The one they once saved, he carries their memory. And memory is stronger than any weapon." The battle escalated rapidly. Syndicate cruisers attempted to force the Terrans into a trap, using superior numbers to encircle them. Rourke anticipated the maneuver. Split into two groups. One lures them toward the nebula cloud. The other prepares an ambush from behind their flank. Timing is critical. Stick to your marks. Trust your training. "Sir, we are outnumbered 3-1, a tactical officer protested. Rourke's eyes were steady, voice calm and unyielding. "Numbers do not matter when will and preparation are on your side. Humanity fights not just with strength but with strategy. And strategy remembers kindness. Execute the plan." Karetha's voice slithered through the comm channels, dripping with contempt. "You dare challenge the Syndicate for a desert world? You humans are fools. Loyalty is meaningless against power." Rourke's response was quiet, yet every word carried across the void. "Power without conscience is fragile. You underestimate the force that remembers its debts. That is why you will lose. Explosions erupted across space like distant lightning. The first Syndicate frigate broke formation, hull breaches sending streams of plasma into the dark. Terran fighters circled with precision, taking advantage of every opening. On the surface, Kilorian adults began emerging cautiously from shelters. They watched their cliffside homes glow under plasma fire, hearts pounding, yet hope had taken root where fear had ruled for so long. In a quiet corner of the flagship, Rourke allowed himself a brief moment to consider the magnitude of what was unfolding. Years ago, one human had survived because of Kilorian kindness. Now, an entire fleet had answered that unspoken promise. "Commander," the communications officer said, breaking the moment, "the civilian zones are secure. Fighters are holding the line. Syndicate reinforcements approaching." Rourke's lips pressed into a thin line. "Prepare to engage full battle protocol. Keep the civilians shielded, and maintain pressure. Every strike we land must protect them and show the Syndicate that kindness carries consequences." The twin suns of Kalar 4 barely pierced the storm clouds that had gathered over the desert cliffs. Lightning licked the sky in jagged streaks, reflecting off the polished hulls of Terran warships as they maneuvered through the planet's orbit. The air below trembled with the residual hum of plasma strikes, and dust swirled over the cliffs where Kilorians crouched in their cliffside homes. Commander Elias Rourke stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, eyes scanning every readout with precision. The Syndicate fleet had begun to regroup, attempting to encircle Terran forces, but the storms offered a rare advantage. Electrical activity over the deserts was unlike anything the Syndicate had encountered. Rourke's mind raced through possibilities. Each bolt, each turbulence, could be a weapon if used wisely. "Storm intensity at 90%, reported the tactical officer. "Orbital interference could compromise standard weapons." Rourke's expression did not falter. "Good. Use it. Alter flight paths to weave through the storm cells. Let the Syndicate fly blind. Engage with drones only when conditions favor us." We turned the storm into a shield and a trap. Below, the Kilorians were no longer mere observers. Ground-level dropships of the Syndicate had penetrated defenses, their sleek, black exteriors slashing across the sand. Terran Marines, augmented with armor and adaptive shields, landed among Kilorian volunteers. Despite differences in form, movement, and communication, the two groups fought as one. A Kilorian youth ducked under a plasma burst, claws trembling, then raised them to cover a human soldier who had stumbled behind a rock formation. "You saved one of us once," the Kilorian hissed through a translator. "Now we fight with you." The human nodded without hesitation. "Then we win together." Moments like this, small and unspoken, rippled through the battle line. Humans and Kilorians moved in coordinated strikes, using the terrain, the storms, and their combined ingenuity to harry Syndicate squads. In orbit, Rourke's fleet executed flanking maneuvers through the storm clouds. Syndicate cruisers faltered, their sensors scrambled by electrical interference. Missiles fired blindly into the storm, detonating harmlessly in the clouds. Terran interceptors darted between lightning strikes, unleashing microdrones that sabotaged enemy systems with pinpoint accuracy. Kareth Vera's voice crackled over comms, venomous and scornful. "You hide behind storms and shadows. Your tactics are weak. I will burn this world and all who shelter beneath it." Rourke's reply was calm, unwavering. "You underestimate the power of memory, Kareth. You fail to understand why we fight. And that failure will be your undoing." The Syndicate flagship attempted a direct strike on the surface cities. Plasma volleys tore into cliffs, sending clouds of sand and debris into the air. Terran shields flared, intercepting the worst of the energy bursts, but the storms were unpredictable. Lightning struck dangerously close to Terran cruisers, testing every engineer's skill and every pilot's nerve. On the ground, a Kilorian elder directed villagers to reinforce shelters and carry supplies to wounded. Despite fear, determination thrummed through their veins. The once passive desert dwellers now ran through alleys and tunnels, coordinating with Terran Marines to evacuate civilians and establish strongholds. A human sergeant shouted over comms, pointing at a Syndicate dropship trying to flank their position. "Target the engines. Kilorian team, cut off the rear access." A Calorian squad leapt into action, claws slicing through metal as they disabled the drop pod's propulsion. It crashed into the sands, explosion muted by the surrounding storm. Cheers erupted, though brief. They had no time for celebration. Every second mattered. Rourke watched as the Syndicate attempted to adapt. They sent swarms of microdrones to disable Terran fighters, but the drones were met with adaptive countermeasures, neutralized before they could reach their targets. The storm intensified, and Rourke realized he had a rare opportunity. The planet itself could amplify Terran power. "Prepare the storm field strategy," he ordered. "Divert auxiliary power to the atmospheric arrays. Channel the storm energy through the fleet's grid. We strike not with fire alone, but with the planet's fury." A tactical officer hesitated. "Commander, the energy flux could overload our systems. We risk destroying our own ships." Rourke's gaze was steel. "Better to risk for victory than watch an entire world perish because we waited." The fleet recalibrated, using the storm's natural plasma as a conductor. Lightning arced through the void, striking Syndicate cruisers with precision guided by human engineering and intuition. Hulls shuddered and ruptured, fire spreading as the Syndicate ships faltered under a combination of skill, bravery, and the storm's raw power. Caretha's fury was palpable. "You use weather as a weapon? You have no honor. I will crush you." Rourke leaned over the command panel, voice low but carrying across calm channels. "Honor is earned by action, Careth. And actions have consequences. You underestimated what it means to be remembered." In the desert, Calorians watched Terran dropships cut across the sand, soldiers and volunteers moving in tandem. Villages that had cowered under Syndicate dominance now stood firm. Every strike, every maneuver, demonstrated not just power, but intention. The humans fought for memory, loyalty, and survival, not for conquest. A Calorian youth shouted at a human soldier, claws raised in triumph. "You came. You remembered." The human smiled, blood and sweat streaking his face. "We never forget." The storm above Kaler 4 reached its zenith. Jagged lightning tore through the twin suns' glow, casting flickering shadows over the desert plains. Terran fleet and Syndicate warships moved like predators in a maelstrom, plasma bursts igniting the void, hulls groaning under impact. But the tide had shifted. Syndicate formations faltered, their calculated arrogance shattered by the combination of human strategy and storm-enhanced firepower. Commander Elias Rourke stood at the bridge of the Resolute, fingers gripping the rail. He had watched countless battles across the frontier, yet this one carried a weight unlike any other. It was not conquest at stake, nor territory, but a promise, a memory kept decades in the making. "Sir," a tactical officer reported, "Caretha's flagship is isolated. Shields are weakened from repeated strikes. If we engage now, we can end the threat to the planet." Rourke nodded, jaw tight. "All units, prepare for concentrated strike. We end this today. Precision only, collateral minimized. Civilian zones are priorities." On the desert surface, Calorians emerged cautiously from shelters, claws trembling but determination etched across their faces. Villages once paralyzed by fear now breathed in the first sense of hope. Children ran to assist injured, elders directed defenses, and the youth who had activated the beacon watched the skies, eyes wide with anticipation. A Calorian woman turned to him. "Do you see them? They came. They are fighting for us." The young one nodded, heart pounding. "They never forgot." Careth Vera's voice cut through calm channels, venom thick enough to choke. "You presume too much, humans. You will burn for your arrogance. Kaler 4 will be ours." Rourke's reply was calm, unshakable. "You presume that memory and loyalty are meaningless. That mistake will cost you everything." Terran fighters weaved through the storm, guided by adaptive targeting systems and human instinct. Lightning flares illuminated Syndicate cruisers as they faltered under assault. Plasma volleys were deflected, hull breaches isolated, and precision strikes disabled critical systems. Below, Calorian volunteers fought alongside Terran Marines to protect key outposts. The coordination between species was seamless, a testament to shared purpose and survival. A Calorian youth shouted, pointing at a Syndicate drop pod attempting to flank their position. "Here. We can stop them." A Terran soldier sprinted beside him, firing at the pod's engines. Sparks and smoke rose as it crashed harmlessly into the dunes. The youth's claws brushed the soldier's shoulder. "We fight together," he said. The soldier's voice was rough but warm. "And we'll finish this together." In orbit, the final engagement began. Rourke coordinated a storm-assisted strike directly on Caretha's flagship. Electrical currents from the planet's atmosphere arced along the fleet's conduits, amplifying plasma blasts with devastating effect. The Syndicate flagship shuddered under repeated hits, systems failing in rapid succession. Caretha's voice became a hiss of fury. "Impossible! No species should wield such power." Rourke's voice carried across the comm channels, unwavering. "You underestimated what it means to be remembered. That one human you ignored, that kindness returned with fire." The flagship convulsed as lightning struck its hull. Fires erupted, alarms screamed, and the massive vessel listed dangerously. Syndicate ships around it faltered, retreating into the storm, unwilling to risk further losses. On the surface, the Calorians cheered cautiously. The destructive shadows above began to thin as Syndicate ships withdrew, battered and demoralized. Terran fighters covered the retreat, ensuring no last-minute assaults could harm the planet below. The young Calorian from the tunnels breathed deeply, wings trembling. The elder beside him placed a claw over his shoulder. "Do you understand now? We gave water to one human. Today, that act saved us all." The youth nodded, eyes glistening. I understand. Humanity remembers." Rourke allowed himself a brief moment of reflection on the bridge. Across decades and light years, a single act of mercy had sparked this response, a fleet answering a call no one else expected. History records victories in terms of numbers, losses, and territorial gains. This was different. This was proof that humanity's greatest weapon was memory, loyalty, and honor kept across time. "Prepare communications for the planet," Rourke ordered. "We leave orbit but remain within sensor range. Calorians must see that we will stand with them if needed again." Back in the tunnels, Calorian leaders gathered to speak with the humans. Their voices, full of relief and awe, mixed clicks and hums with Terran words. We did not believe anyone would come," said the elder, voice quivering. "Yet you arrived. You honored a promise that was small, yet heavier than mountains." Rourke stepped forward, expression firm but warm. "One human survived because of your compassion. That is enough for humanity to remember. We fight not for glory, but for what we owe. You can trust that, now and always." A Calorian child looked up at him, wide-eyed. "You remember everything?" Rourke smiled, rough hands resting on the railing. "Every act of kindness. Every promise. That is who we are." The storm above Kaler 4 began to abate. Twin suns broke through clouds, casting golden light across dunes and cliffs. The combined efforts of humans and Calorians had preserved the planet, demonstrating that courage and loyalty could overcome superior firepower and brutality. Careth Vera's retreating ships were a silent testament to miscalculation. Across the galaxy, intelligence reports would soon carry the story of a species that did not just wage war, they honored memory, and they answered the call of kindness. Below, Calorians emerged fully from their shelters. Villages were damaged but intact, people alive, hope alive. Children pointed at the horizon, where Terran ships remained in orbit, a promise etched in metal and plasma. The elder turned to the young Calorian who had activated the beacon. "Do you understand now? We acted with mercy once, and it returned multiplied. This is the power of memory, of humanity." The youth nodded, eyes reflecting the suns and the ships above. "We will never forget. And they never forgot us." Rourke watched the Calorians from orbit, heart steady despite exhaustion. "This is what it means to be human," he said quietly to his officers. "We remember. We honor. And when needed, we act. That is our strength." The fleet prepared to jump back to the frontier base, leaving Kaler 4 in recovery, But the legacy of loyalty remained. Across the stars, tales of the Terran fleet's intervention would spread, altering perception, not of fear alone, but of respect, caution, and admiration for a species that remembered, above all else. Calorians looked up at the departing ships, a new constellation of trust and gratitude forming in their hearts.